Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Always Believer. It's Motivational Mondays. Of course, you all know me. I'm Ariadna, and I have Cassandra as always. Hi, Cassandra.
Oh, hello. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, good. Very excited, ready to kick off this week and just see what motivational quote we have here.
Exactly. Would you be our guest and tell us the quote, please?
Yes, it is. Every intention, every achievement has come out of dissatisfaction, not serenity. No one ever said things are perfect, let us make fire. By Fran Lebowitz.
I adore that though, especially like I remember reading this quote for the first time the other day with you, and I'm like, no, I just cracked up. Like, no one ever said things are perfect. Let us make fire. Like, yeah, that's usually, yeah, I don't think that's ever happened. No.
Definitely not. I mean, this goes back to the caveman days whenever first they were discovering fire and then were trying to invent the wheel, which then allowed them to take carts and be able to move, more and more things as they build up. And it made it like as we got civilizations, we were moving away from, oh, okay, like, we have to figure out food and surviving. And then we moved into like, oh, now we have houses and we have this and that. And we built and built and built civilizations from the ground up. I mean, back in the day, there was nothing, just little huts and stones and caves.
Exactly. I mean, definitely way, way back in the day for us, obviously, and listeners. I know that some people still live that way, of course, but regardless, you're still always trying, or at least you're, no matter what you do, you're still trying to always push yourself to do something greater and better and bigger, even if it's something as quote unquote simple as like what you said, just actually making fire because you need heat because we do get cold no matter where you live. Usually that's the way it happens. And I like the idea of always, it reminded me a little bit of like other quotes we've had on like getting out of your comfort zone, simply because like if you're not satisfied with something, you just have to like work your way until you're satisfied. I'm sure that may kind of make sense with the quote. But
Yeah,
still.
that does make sense. And also to add on to that, it's, with the saturation, I guess you could say, in social media today, there is so many people that'll see what one person is doing is kind of like, oh, like how can I replicate that to like get to where they are? Maybe it's not always looking at how to replicate something. It's more like, what can I do that adds value but is different in a different way that will attract, similar people or new people to whatever I'm doing over here. So it's not always about like replicating things to find success. Sometimes it's about what what can I do that adds value to like the situation that would make me find success myself, because I am
Exactly.
unique and different.
Yeah, I love that. Definitely, definitely. One of the things you also reminded me of is like with this quote, you also gotta like embrace your struggles as well. Like the dark side of what you're going through. I feel like it's something that a lot of people, I don't want to say take for granted, but no, not even take for granted, actually. No, I think a lot of people get frustrated at the fact they have to go through so much dark stuff. And it could be anything from not being able to hang out with your best friend because of probably the pandemic, for example, recently, and still going through it, to a million other things. And it's like you have to understand that what you're going through, that dark side, that dark moment, that darkness, whatever you want to call it, you have to go through it in order to see the light, and you got to like embrace those struggles and failures. I think last time we talked about this off air, because you and me talk for hours and hours on end as always. We came up with like different examples of I think I was telling you about working out, for example, and how, like, through COVID, of course, the gyms were closed, and, moving from a city to, like, the suburbs, moving from a really hot place to a really cold place, my whole lifestyle changed because I couldn't go out for long walks. I couldn't go to the gym, obviously. There's a lot of things that just kind of, like, blocked my path of being as active and, starting gaining weight, plus my hyperthyroidism, plus a million other stress balls. And what I've learned throughout the whole year, not only in health, but just many other areas, of course, that, like, I had to go through that, and I had to embrace, and I had to understand my feelings, my frustration, and be like, it's okay to feel these feelings. It's okay to understand that, like, these obstacles are there. How do I overcome them? What can I do next? So that kind of leads back, circles back to what you were saying of, like, does it have to be a success story? I don't have to be losing 20 pounds in 1 year, in 6 months, or whatever, your goal is. That's might be on the table. What you have to do is, what can you do today that brings you closer to that? And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. And I also think of it sometimes because, I think we talk a lot about failures and then how to move through the failure on to like the next thing and how you can embrace your failures. One of the things that was so crazy that's happened to me over the past year is, yes, I was actually let go out of the military, and I bring it up often. But what I didn't anticipate was that I was able to work through like those bitter feelings and the depression that comes with that. And then this year, um people have been giving my contact out like to other people that this maybe happens to, and so I've kind of become this like quasi person that people contact because everyone's like, we heard your story and then we also heard what you did after that, and we just want to get some advice of like how to move through how we're going to get out of the military and how we're going to deal with that. So like I've actually talked now with 3 people that this has happened to since it happened to me. And what's so funny is when it happened to me, I didn't have anyone. I didn't know who to contact. I didn't know if there was someone out there like me. But because I was a part of the community, and I think because of the way I've overcome that, people have been comfortable like giving my contact out to other people, and then in turn like they've been contacting me and like working through their emotions that have occurred with them. And I don't know, like it's just such a weird circle that's like happening, because before I could have really let that bitterness really take over, and instead I've become like the person that people call for like advice.
And there's something so beautiful about that. And it goes back to, like, every achievement, like the question, sorry, the quote says, every intention, every achievement has to come out of dissatisfaction, not serenity. You were not satisfied with your outcome. I definitely was not satisfied with my outcome. And you just figure out a way. And there's something so beautiful that sharing your story actually helps other people. And I mean, my equivalent to that is probably like my sexual abuse story that I always share. Um, my really rocky childhood and teenagehood, the more I talked about it, the more other people were like, oh my God, I like the same thing happened. That's how I also created Latina, because I didn't feel Latina enough. I didn't feel like USA good enough, if that's a word. That's not really, but a kind of a mix, kind of all over the place. And yeah, the more you talk about it and the more that you overcome it for yourself, obviously, but it's community. I think it's definitely something that, like, we all resonate with, and something so important to speak out.
Yeah.
So
And
important to
so
stand up.
absolutely. I completely agree with that. And one of the questions that we both had discussed prior to this recording was kind of like, well, what are some of the adversities that you're facing right now? And how do you take that as an adversity and basically make it a success story for you? And there's, I almost, I was going to say 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but I was like, maybe I shouldn't say that specifically.
No. And I have, like, my kitty right in front of me. I'm like, no, don't say that.
Well, that's just a saying, but like there are so many different ways. I think that's also one of the things I think about with this is, you know, yeah, that person did A, B, C, and D and got to where they are. But that the path is infinite. Like there's so many different ways that you can do things and come up with ideas and use similar subjects, but like totally reinvent kind of like how other people have been using that subject or whatever it is. I mean, there's so many different examples or options, but that's like one of the things I would definitely leave with you is that the path is not one way. So there's very many ways to get to a point.
Yes, I love that so much. Time and paths are just things of imagination. Basically, you don't have a set time to do that. Some things are, you don't have a set age to do something, you don't have to be anywhere at any single time, because that really just depends on you. So much like you said, some people do ABC, but maybe you do TYD, give me an M. You know what I mean? Like, you just take that path completely different. And we did talk about this literally before we started recording today off air. Like, every path is different, and it's not about comparison. I feel like comparison is just really wrong thing to do, because your only competition is yourself, and the only person you have to be better than is yourself from yesterday, basically. Because especially what you were saying a little bit really quickly about social media, we're so used to comparing, we're so used to seeing, we're so used to doing that, especially the time that we're living in. We've been home for a freaking year, like we've been online way more. It's like, no, stop doing that. Stop. You have to be happy with your decisions, and you have to understand that through your struggles and imperfections and things like that, it's what makes you beautiful, and that's what you have to overcome. And also, I think, even though it's kind of off topic, but I talked about this with a friend yesterday, something similar, and she was a bit lost, which is fine, of course. And I'm like, be sure to surround yourself, not only your life, with friends that lift you higher, but also your feed. Because, like, if I show you my feed, it's all about not only body positive, like I was saying about weight before, but it's about mentality. It's about all these positive things for you to keep pushing yourself. So I feel like that's always going to be something that helps you as like a tip, I guess. But still. But yeah. Oh, and for last, before we get to like today's question and quote, of course, before I forget, you reminded me of two different TV shows from Netflix, not sponsored, but I recently watched with family members in general, Ginny and Georgia, and Cobra Kai, actually. And both of them are about overcoming obstacles and learning to live with your mistakes, but at the same time, just like keep pushing, keep going. So those are fun. Those are fun shows to definitely watch.
Yeah, I actually have not seen either of those shows, so that's definitely something I could put on. And I actually so I watched used to watch Lost Girl on Sci-Fi, and recently Lost Girls come for free to CW Seed. And I don't know, I just so it's definitely sci-fi. There's like the Fae and there's all these things, werewolves and all the other things. But Bo and Kenzie, they're the two main characters in the show. And it's just that they're always having to face some sort of struggle, which has to do with the Fae world and all these things. And I don't know, like I've been rewatching a lot of that this past week and just really getting lifted up by all of their story and kind of how strong they are in certain scenarios. And yes, it's a TV show, and yes, it's sci-fi, but I don't know, there's something about just like a badass duo of two women that I don't know, it's just so
Oh,
rewarding
that's
to watch.
I agree. That's both of these shows. I mean, Georgia and Ginny, or Ginny and Georgia, the opposite, but still they're mother daughter duo. And then Cobra Kai has really badass women as well, and like a lot of self strength and just like overcoming a whole bunch of stuff. So I definitely agree with that. And going back to yours, the supernatural one, what's it called again? Lost Girl.
Yeah.
We I want to plug my other podcast. I already did Latina, but that's King Paul Myers. Like, we have KPM Supernatural and KPM True Crime, and we do a bunch of stuff with horror, but we do a lot of supernatural between me and my homegirl and Dylan, of course. And I feel like that's something that we definitely have to look into because I love those kind of things.
So good. But I'm gonna go ahead and read the quote unless you have anything else to add, lady.
Feel free to read the quote, my darling.
So we'll give you the quote one more time, and hopefully through this week you can kind of think about some of the adversities that you're going through and how to turn those into successes. The quote is, "Every intention, every achievement has come out of dissatisfaction, not serenity. No one ever said things are perfect, let us make fire." And it's by Fran Lebowitz.
Oh, love it. And our question, so you guys can, your little here team flyer can tell us in the comments down below for today's post is what adversities, that's my adversary, learning how to say these complicated words in English better. What adversities? Did I say that correctly? There you go. What adversities are you facing and how can you make that become one of your successes? See, mine is learning more English. No, seriously though, reading a lot. I read a lot in English and like hopefully my vocabulary gets better or my pronunciation at least, but still. So yeah, anything else you want to join? I mean, goodness gracious, anything else you want to add, not join?
Yeah, definitely let us know some stuff in the comments. We're trying to get more active this season and be kind of like talk more with the community. So if you have anything to add, please feel free to share it with us.
Definitely. I mean, we're all here together. We love community and we're all here to build each other up. So let's do this. And as for us, see you next Motivational Monday. Bye. Bye, Team Flyer.